Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Elephant Den. Our summer has come to an end.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. But it was a splashing great summer, wasn't it?
No, it was. It was a good one.
But it was a good one.
Mm-hmm.
A couple great movies came out.
Yeah, a couple of these movies made a splash.
Made a big splash. Lots of people talked about it, which is great. We love that. We're going to be talking about not Barbie, but Oppenheimer.
Oppenheimer.
Directed by the great Christopher Nolan.
And alongside with Barbie, the two together coming out on the same weekend, it kind of created this cultural phenomenon.
My favorite thing was that people got dressed up for both.
It was really fun.
That's cool. It was cool to see. It was cool to see the movie theater packed.
The movie stars Cillian Murphy in the title role. You have co-stars Emily Blunt, Robert Downey Jr., Matt Damon, to name a few. Mm-hmm. In summary, what we're looking at is kind of the lifespan of Oppenheimer, specifically when he's head of director of the Manhattan Project, overseeing all the staff, military scientists who are working on the creation of the atomic bomb in Los Alamos.
So based on our experience watching Oppenheimer, we'd put together a few questions that we could ask and discuss together.
Sounds good.
Let's get right into it. First question. Within a month of the atomic bomb being created, President Truman, who was the president of the United States at the time, made the decision to drop the bomb on the nation of Japan. With this event and the great significance of it, Robert J. Oppenheimer felt immense guilt for this action, being the father of the atomic bomb. Mm-hmm. How well would you say this movie portrayed that guilt and how well he handled it?
I think the film did an excellent job in portraying a human's natural process and reaction to the consequences of their actions. It's only when it's too late that Oppenheimer is getting these second guesses of what he's actually created and the consequences of that. And that's why the whole, case against him starts coming about, because it seems like, his morality was coming in a little too late. But I think it's perfectly natural in many cases in real life of people, not really seeing the bigger picture right away. And what I think the film did really well is once after that Trinity test, not long after that, we follow up with a scene of kind of this celebration speech that he has. It took the Americans' perspective at the time, who only were waiting to hear that, okay, they bombed Japan.
Right.
And this is a victory. But they themselves didn't see for a while what actually happened.
For people, the Japanese and people like me who grew up learning about the impact of the atomic bomb, I was kind of like, oh wow, this scene doesn't show the pain and the suffering, and even with the special effects, just the skin coming off the face. I was like, that doesn't.
Paper mache.
Yeah, it doesn't look good. Like, that doesn't look real. It doesn't look like what actually happened.
No, of course not.
And it got me a little emotional in that sense.
Yeah, I could understand you were a little disappointed with that, but then, and not to go against you, it would have felt like that was the obvious thing. Is at some point they have to show that the gore and everything. And again, that's not typical of Nolan. And I think the way he went about it was, of course, like that. It wouldn't be like that at all.
Right.
It would be much more intense.
Right.
And I think Oppenheimer could probably assume what the physical implications were. But what I said with him, just his guilt coming later, or recognizing what's really going on, it's the same reason why they went, when they had doubt that maybe these calculations, it may lead to a reaction which will destroy the world.
Right.
Even then they went forward. And I think that was something quite bizarre, which I never heard before, that tidbit, that fact that like they actually thought they could maybe destroy the world. And yet even then they went on with it.
I've been interested in Oppenheimer's story for a long time. At some point, I learned this key piece of information that in the lead up to the Trinity test, they were dealing with a very small possibility that when they pushed that button, they would set fire to the atmosphere of the Earth and destroy the entire planet. And yet, they pushed that button.
So if people are capable of doing that, then this all like totally just makes sense, even from a guy as smart as Oppenheimer, you know?
Yeah. It's just also trying to show the real human process and reaction. Because, like, no one's ever created an atomic bomb before, right? Like, he's the first person to create something that could possibly, destroy the whole world, because they didn't know at the time the effects. So to be able to show that emotion through a human in this film, I think he did a really good job. And like specifically to that scene where they're celebrating, to combine victory and guilt, I think is not an easy thing. And I think that's why he used sound to depict that more than imagery, because I guess, I don't know, it might be harder to create the imagery of it, but like it just, I guess that's why you felt it more inside, because it was suspense, but then it was also excitement with the screaming and the celebrating.
I think you're dead on, where for me it wasn't the visuals of like the cremated body shell that he steps through and then the paper mache face.
Right.
Those things weren't really on its own, don't really do it for me. It was the combination of the performance, and obviously the whole film is full of Cillian Murphy and the close-ups on his face, and he's very gaunt, and you know, it's just his big blue icy eyes, but still there's so much humanity in him and frustration which comes through in the performance.
Yeah, throughout the entire film, to continue on those emotions of like whether or not you created something that was good or bad. It was a lot for Cillian Murphy to take on, and I think he did a phenomenal job for one person to be able to portray the emotions.
Oh yeah, the movie wrote on his shoulders, and this was the first time Nolan wrote a script in the first person. So going into it, they both knew how much of a responsibility it was for Cillian Murphy to do this, and it's awesome that he had this opportunity, because he's been working with Nolan for like almost 20 years or something. But this was his first time having the title role. So, and yeah, what a role. Definitely, probably it'll be the standout role of his career.
So, as Alex touched upon, the directive instincts of Christopher Nolan reaching a new maturity level. Can we talk about some of his and his crew's choices in sound, editing, symbolic imagery, and the actors that he chose to play in this film? Okay,
well, we could talk about some of the actors and actresses, because we were just talking about Cillian Murphy. Notably, we have Robert Downey Jr., who's playing Strauss, who's kind of in this film the rival to Oppenheimer. And it's a very interesting role, and Robert Downey Jr. is amazing in it. Many people are hoping that he's going to be at least nominated for an Oscar.
Can I just point out that I did not know it was Robert Downey Jr. for like 10 minutes into the film.
And of course, you know, some makeup has that effect too, but it's really a reserved performance he has. He definitely has like Oscar bait moments near the end, but what I really enjoyed to hear and find out was Nolan, of course, wanted to kind of flip the switch and have Robert Downey Jr. come in, but not do Robert Downey Jr., you know? the classic like charisma,
Right.
right, of like Iron Man.
A more reserved
Yeah.
personality.
Yeah. What I loved finding out was that Nolan recommended to Robert Downey Jr. that he watch Amadeus, the Milos Forman masterpiece. And in that you have kind of a semi-true, semi-made-up story about Mozart and his rivalry with Salieri, who's an Italian composer who was severely jealous of Mozart, at least in the film. And so he wanted Robert Downey Jr. to take from that relationship and bring that to Oppenheimer. That character, his conflict, which is more so an inner conflict, as we find out in the end. He's just a flawed man who thinks, you know, things are being talked about him when really it's more important things, right? And then if we talk about the editing and sound design, again, that's something which in recent Nolan films, he's had complaints on him about like the sound design, and you can't hear people talking.
We all know what movie.
Yeah, especially the last one.
Tenet.
He really fixed that, it seems.
I think it was necessary for a heavy dialogue.
Oh,
film,
yeah.
to make sure that we could hear that, because or else you're lost.
Well, then even then, yeah, because it's so, and that's why thankfully we did watch it a second time and with subtitles, because we're the kinds of viewers who enjoy subtitles. That's really like not popular, but I think you pick up a lot, especially when so many motivations are going on. Like when it came to Robert Downey Jr.'s character and what his kind of hearing was about, or like him getting potentially elected into the cabinet, right?
It was more so like understanding the situation with the politics of it.
Yeah. So they definitely improved on that. And then, yeah, the sound, as you could expect in IMAX and everything.
Yeah.
But then it's when, again, with his instincts to like cut that out, you know, we're all anticipating the Trinity test and what that's going to be. And apparently there's no special effects and how that was done. And that's all great. But like what really got you in that moment, of course, the lead up was the soundtrack, the score, which was fantastic by Ludwig Göransson. He's like nothing. Well,
to
more
that
than
on its own.
Yeah.
The movie.
I can't even say he's up and coming. That was my favorite thing about Tenet. He established himself from there, and he's probably had work before that, which I haven't heard. But the score is fantastic.
Yeah.
And sorry to go back on track, but the Trinity test, after the buildup of the score, the sound just cuts out. And all you're hearing is breathing and that time delay of the sound coming, and all that. That was very accurately and well done.
Also, yeah, like the suspense leading up to it. I think that's what makes the silence so loud, right?
Yeah. Another thing I heard in a recent interview with Nolan was, which I really liked, was he said that he doesn't like to think of himself as someone who's mastered one trait. You know, like a director, the whole thing is to work with people and problem solve. He likes to think of himself as a jack of all trades instead of a specialist. And by that, you could tell that he dabbles in every department when it comes to making the film. The score, he definitely has an idea of what he wants. He knew he wanted to use violins because he thought with the violin, has so much range to where you could have, you know, excitement and like creation, right? That feeling.
I feel like it also has the feeling of quantum physics.
Oh yeah.
Like, I mean, I don't know how to explain if this makes sense, but it's that like that range maybe.
Yeah.
And the sound of the string.
Yeah, and the perpetual
Just
motion and like
the lights and the atoms flying.
Yeah, no, that excitement which you just
maybe
saw
that's
there.
What it is, the excitement.
And the creating, but then it also went into the anxiety that Oppenheimer was feeling and the dread of everything going on. So that was masterful to use violin. And one more thing which I really wanted to touch on that Nolan did great in Oppenheimer was his use of symbolic imagery and how some of these images foreshadow later events in Oppenheimer's life. Specifically, I'm thinking of the first scene where we have Oppenheimer as a young student and he attempts to poison his professor, and he soon after regrets it, and he even stops him from eating the apple.
Well, actually, it was not even the professor that was eating it. It was the other guy.
Right.
So
that was the
another
only
good symbolic
right
representation.
And what we're talking about, how it foreshadows Oppenheimer's later actions in creating the bomb, and how after its creation he's kind of backpedaling.
Right.
And how
or he has guilt.
Or he sees that it's being directed in a direction which he didn't really think yet.
Right.
And it's too late. His actions are it's already done. And so I love how in the first scene that's shown. I also loved images like the water droplets, you know, where it shows like how he compared the water droplets and the ripple effect to what would be like the ripple effect of the world if all these nuclear bombs went off, and how it would affect the world. And I thought that was really original, and yeah, I just appreciate it when the camera can zoom in and look at these everyday things, but then it gives, just because of this movie, you have a whole new meaning to it, and it changes your whole how you see those things, you know? And for that reason, for it to be compiled in this film all together, and why I say he's maturing is because you could see where he's restraining himself or pulling back, and in those cases it being much more mature and intellectual than maybe being like just bombastic and going all out in that sense, you know what I mean?
There was a lot more intellectual choices. So my last question I have for you is, prior to this movie coming out, we all knew the consequences and the effects of the atomic bomb in Japan. And then there was only a few of us who knew, I don't know, of Oppenheimer. I only knew his name. I didn't know his story really, or the process of his creation to the atomic bomb. Let's talk about Nolan's motive for creating this film and basing it off of what's it called? The American Prometheus novel.
Yeah.
Let's talk about his motive behind that, and why is it a significant tale to tell in this day today? Like, why is it important that we talk about this?
Well, it's complicated because if you still look at nuclear weapons, it's still a very valid fear today. And specifically, and I heard Nolan talk about this himself, is his concern is when nations and governments will use a controlled nuclear weapon, or like what they would say, a limited amount. And it's when you start opening those floodgates that you can't stop, right? But as far as even beyond nuclear warfare, another big concern and hot topic these days is, of course, artificial intelligence, and what are going to be the consequences of the inevitable future coming to us with this technology progressing, and it's like it's bound to happen, and we just have to see what's going to happen.
It's almost like there's nothing we could do.
No, and in a lot of ways it makes sense, you know, this progression, and you see why we're looking for it and how it could benefit us. But then, yes, there's clear red flags to even in what Nolan does in the creation of art and film. AI is going to have huge implications on those things, and yeah, so what it means for a computer to make a piece of art compared to a human, and what are we going to value? Are we going to still value human creation as opposed to an AI generated song which is specifically generated to please Ashli.
Not only songs, I mean, there's already quite a few films that people are making on YouTube that are AI generated art pieces. So yeah, it's already happening.
It's already happening, and it's
everywhere.
It's an unstoppable force. And just like the story of Oppenheimer and the atomic bomb, and how the film concludes, which we could talk about because it's history, but it's like, maybe we are, the way the film portrays it is that we're essentially kind of screwed already. And that's what Robert J. Oppenheimer believed. So what would be the point, or is this a cautionary tale, or is it more just like already telling you that we're meant for this destruction?
I really think that this movie was created to bring awareness to the point of how easy it is for the world to just be gone just like that.
In the film, I also like to look at moments which have similar or big consequences too, like how one man, because of his ego, misinterprets or assumes what's being said about him, and his ego propels him to have a vendetta against a very powerful person, and the implications of that changes his life, the other's life. I'm talking about Strauss, and how his fears and his ego got in the way but created this whole situation which didn't need to be there. And that's the nature of man, I think.
I wonder if his character was to represent mankind.
Well, it's like in Interstellar, you have Matt Damon's character. Quite literally, his name was Dr. Man or something, and he was showing in that character the weaknesses and the weaknesses of man. Right? You remember? Yeah. And he named him Man. Yeah, I think so. I like those. It's a smaller narrative, and maybe you think the consequences are lesser, but they still impact someone's individual life and many people's lives.
Right.
So I think there's lessons to be learned all around. The way the film ends, it's a real gut punch, and it's quite emotional, and it sticks with you because of that kind of realization, which we should have known is coming, but it's when it's too late is when it's most impactful,
So you would say that it's like relevant to today because of our creation of artificial intelligence and the
I think
progress of that.
It very much is relevant to today for those reasons, and yet it's teaching this real person who maybe didn't choose to drop the bombs on Japan, but he made it. And so we learn about his inner turmoil, and obviously the whole story of how it came to be. That was really insightful.
I really enjoyed this movie for that reason of it teaching a wider audience, who Oppenheimer was and the significance of his creation being so impactful to our world. I mean, it created history, right?
Yeah.
And what our world is today.
And so for all those reasons, I think it's a relevant film very much, and also just there's a lot to take away from it, and all those things I think just make it very, very great and important. It's an important film.
So just like how the movie ends with a gut punch, we're gonna end this video with another gut punch.
Okay.
Thank you so much. That was a really good discussion.
Thank you for your
we hope
good
that
questions.
You grabbed something out of this. If you haven't watched it, we hope that you are inspired to now watch the film because we highly recommend it.
Oh yeah.
Like you said, it's a very important film. So yeah, we recommend going out there and watching it right now.
And as far as our channel, Elephant Den, yeah, we appreciate you coming back and viewing.
Yeah, viewing our videos. Please comment. We want to hear you guys. If
yeah,
we
that
could,
we're
connect.
yeah, we want to kind of start slowly but surely growing a community and getting a little more feedback.
I mean, it's been slowly. We're just getting.
But yeah, no, and
impatient
every
right now.
one of you we appreciate. But yeah, don't be scared to like comment and just let us know what you think in general, good or bad, whatever. We're open-minded.
Yeah, so thank you so much for watching this video. If you like us and you want more, we've got other platforms that you can follow us on. We have Instagram called @Ashli and Alex, and we also have Letterboxd, which, come on, movie lovers, you know what that is. It's an app. We are not sponsored by it, but we love the app, so please follow us on Letterboxd. It's called @Ashli and Alex as well. And stay tuned. We have more exciting things coming.
Yeah.
We're trying to like grow this, so we've got new projects in our
We want to
minds that
build
we're
the
creating.
community, and we want to hear from you, but we have big ideas already that we can't wait for you to see and experience, and we're super excited in that stuff. So stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Stay subscribed. All right, thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're awesome.